The announcement that Microsoft plans to end their support for the world-famous XP operating system has left many people feeling upset and bewildered. As we reported on China Take last week, the 12-year-old OS will apparently lose its support network by April 8th of this year. In China, it is thought that XP-related problems resulting from this move will likely be much more pronounced than the rest of the world. Net market share claims that about 75% of Chinese PCs are running XP. Meanwhile, remarks from Guangnan, an academic at the Chinese Academy of Engineering, has aroused considerable online discussion. By saying that Microsoft's decision has actually provided China's IT companies a great opportunity to make a homegrown operating system to fill the void. While such a thought has been a hot topic for some time, the reality is far from ideal. Just earlier this month, China's best hope for a homegrown computer operating system to compete with the global giants like Microsoft lay in tatters after state-backed red flag software was forced to close its doors. So how do Chinese net users feel about China's domestic soft and hardware? Do they think it will ever be able to compete with the industry giants? To take a look at what they have to say, let's cross over to the newsroom and our researcher, Julia Liu. So Julia, first off, how do Chinese net users feel about the current situation of China's homegrown systems?
Well, one thing for sure is that Chinese netizens are not happy at all with what they have seen so far. Well, as a matter of fact, there have been quite a number of reports about apparent newly developed operating systems every few months. Well, for example, last month there was a report about the launch of China's first independent mobile operating system called COS, which simply stands for Chinese Operating System. Well, this is the country's first government-approved smartphone OS. But while the news titles related to such issues are usually considered positive, like China's first independent mobile operating system is a huge threat to iOS and Android, or COS, the future domination for all operating systems in the world. Well, net users don't seem to buy it at all. Rick Xiaofeng 在上贴吧到百度.com. Well, I don't even know where to start with my comments about such statements. Just look at the video they provided on this COS system. Can you find anything about it that is different from the Android run on the HTC smartphone? Well, it's COS really short for China Operating System. I think the name Cockpit Operating System is even better. And I have to say that this comment is definitely representative of the majority of those expressed on all the news about the newly homegrown IT product.
It seems that Chinese people are starting to put a lot of attention on the issue of the development of this industry. Is there indeed a sense of urgency expressed? And, well, if so, why do you think that from what you're seeing online?
Well, yes, and on this issue, one thing that's mentioned quite often is actually the PRISM scandal last year. For example, Xiao Kula on ppem.com says, well, the PRISM scandal has made us realize how important information security is. Well, it made us know that the threat of an attack from civilians of information is not unrealistic, which also shows how urgent it is to have a homegrown software and hardware of our own. And this poster says with more details on prnews.com. Well, despite all those reports of how China is successful in developing our own systems, the fact is that 90% of operating systems used in core industries in China, like electricity and banks, are all foreign products. And it's not just the operating system, but all the sophisticated equipment, the databases, the CPUs, the servers. Well, the potential danger is not hard to imagine, especially after this PRISM scandal. From a different perspective, some posters analyze the urgency not from the angle of safety, but from the potential business opportunities this brings. Well, here this poster thinks the high-speed rail industry in China is a good example. And he says, well, domestic intellectual property brings huge job opportunities for talent, and it also benefits the country's economy. Look at China's high-speed rail industry. By developing this technology, China has provided benefits for its people on transportation, and it made actual profits as well by exporting the technology.
That being the case, as this latest poster points out, the high-speed rail industry appeared to develop quite fluidly over the past few years. So what exactly went wrong with the development of the IT technology? There should be the talent in China.
Yes, you're right. And actually, net users have lots of different opinions as to the reasons. Well, some think it's due to the education system in China. as this poster says on 163.com. While China's education system is the best way to cue creative thought in kids, well, how can we expect some real creative talents coming from such a system? But many others view that things are not that easy, that it might not be that we don't have talent, but that the talent doesn't have the right place to do their job. Well, many of them mention a very important link in this issue, that most of the development of the IT technology is just sponsored by the government. Well, this post comment on 163.com is quite sharp, and it says, well, most of the IT enterprises that are developing new technologies are more concentrated on developing a product that just caters to the tastes and needs of the government rather than the needs of the much broader public and private sector, because this is the way they can get more funds. And that is why many such companies got involved in copyright lawsuits, because they focus more on the concept rather than the content. Well, this is definitely a complicated issue that needs to be solved from a multitude of angles. And I'd like to close with this suggestion on ppew.com. Well, one possible solution in the short term is that the government should stop funding one single government-backed company in this sector, while turning to open source cooperation among many dynamic private companies might produce a much better effect.
Some interesting perspectives on China's IT sector efforts. Thanks, Julia. And that was China Take researcher Julia Liu with a look at IT in China. Next up on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines.